Welcome to Questions or Quacks, the show that asks the questions you want to know. As you may already know, the Australian government has introduced a bill that has divided the country. The question on everyone's mind today is it a good idea to have everyone's genetic information registered at birth? We've got some experts here on the scene. Our first speaker is from the halls of government itself, George Reitman. And a little old lady we picked up outside our offices, she says her name is Sally Sue Stewart, and she's representing all you folks at home. They're our opposition. Next up, we have Felix Fixerman, a lead genetic researcher who has made several medical breakthroughs. We also have Sam Skeeman as a leading business owner. So to get the discussion started, I'll pose a question to you. Is it a good idea to get everyone's information registered at birth? Felix?
I really think this law should go through. A genetic register like this would do an enormous amount of good. It would be a tool for genetic research and could lead us to cures and treatments for genetic diseases such as Huntington's, or identify genetic links in other diseases. Currently, newborn screening is used to detect birth defects such as hypothyroidism, phenylketonuria, and sickle cell disease. These rare diseases will also be added to the database and lead to improved forms of treatment and possible cures. It could also be very helpful when it comes to treating people with any kind of disease, because medication works differently for different kinds of people, and this is dictated by the genes. It could help prevent adverse side effects, and help make sure patients get the right treatment fast. In addition to that, you're able to prepare if you know you're at a high risk of disease.
Yes, but what if someone decided to discriminate based on your genetic information? I mean, have you seen Gattaca? Isn't that the entire point of the movie? What if someone gets denied life-saving medications because they just don't have the right genes for it? What if they get denied like a house or a job because sometime later in life they had a chance of maybe getting a life-threatening illness? And these genes, chances, the risks aren't actually set in stone, like it might not happen. So how can you fight for this when this discrimination could occur?
I disagree. This law could help many people. Also, it has medical benefits like to catch a killer based on his genetic sequences. Think how easily to identify a criminal just by his DNA. This technique will reduce crimes.
That's ridiculous. You all know what this is, right? Mr. Skeeman owns an insurance business. Think how much money he stands to make if he can tell that some poor sap has, a higher chance of getting dementia. As many news sources have shared in the past few years, our country doesn't have many regulations against companies increasing premium rates on things like life or travel insurance based on genetic information. My party will make sure that this is a top priority if we are elected in the next cycle.
Well, consider those experts of health information that could affect their coverage, such as a high risk for terminal illness that has a strong link to genetic like Huntington's. Their decision to not disclose could lead to a higher premiums across the board. And you, Mr. Redman, you are only opposing this because you want to have a higher chance to get elected.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, Ms. Stewart. Do you really honestly think, how could you ethically tell me that there is nothing that the government should not be in charge of this? I just cannot tell you. The insurance companies, are you sure?
Your morals are just obviously...
What? My morals?
Yeah.
My morals? What about your ethics? How could you be telling me that I'm campaigning here at this debate? No, I'm obviously just trying to get across my party's great, good-natured, census-grounded foundation. Hey now, let's all calm down. I've got an interesting question. Let's say the registry does go online. Who would have access? It should be limited to law enforcement only. As early as 2004, research on the US has uncovered that commercial data brokers were packaging data for law enforcement. Having a centralized database that is publicly run will mitigate the need for these backdoor methods in Australia and lead to higher transparency. It will become easier to identify not only repeat offenders, but catch people early in their criminal career, perhaps preventing further crimes.
Oh, come on.
It is much easier to track a system that is primarily law enforcement. One of the primary problems with my health record is that it does not tell you who specifically is accessing your data, only the organizations that do. If we were able to make it a centralized database for law enforcement only, we could have a system sort of like subpoenas that could track exactly who is accessing it and for what reasons.
Doctors and researchers should have access too. How else can we put information towards helping people? And on that note, the database can also allow parents to seek effective, supportive services, such as counseling, and to mentally prepare. What would the point of the registry be otherwise?
Exactly. And if drug companies start getting access, are we going to open things up to other business as well?
No.
Just consider this. Who would be accountable for the maintenance and security of all this data? Who would provide counseling services? Would the PBS be part of the system? Could it? How could we possibly afford all this? Would your taxes go up? Would mine? These are serious questions that need answers.
You know, I really don't think it should be government handled. I mean, your websites have had serious security flaws in the past. I mean, wasn't it in 2005 that they had the whole thing with the tax records, where if you logged on to the same computer in the same browser, you were able to see the previous person's tax records? And this is serious health information. Like, that's a big flaw. So we really need to think about this.
You know, Miss Stewart, you're bringing up quite good valid points. And honestly, I can't speak to what happened in 2005, but what I can say is that we've learned a lot in these last 13 years. That's a long time. And I know there have been breaches recently in privatized institutions. Like just this year, in June of 2018, ABC was reporting about bank details, TFNs, personal and other personal details of job applicants stolen from places like Kohl's, and people were highly concerned. And also Singapore had their security hack of their health record. But you have to understand, these are private institutions and foreign institutions. And although we've had prior breaches, I think what we can do from all this is learn how to make our security better handled. And if we limit it to law enforcement, that would limit the amount of people to essentially judges or law enforcement individuals such as police officers who subpoena that information. And it would be just as secure as any other information in those databases already.
But isn't none of the online information that secure? There's always the risk of hacking.
That's true. That's what I'm saying. If we're going to have it, although I don't think we really should, it should only be law enforcement.
You know, but isn't this a breach of like my right to privacy as well? I mean, shouldn't I get to be able to choose who gets access to my genetic information?
Maybe the database can have different levels of access, which depend on the person's professions and needs. For example, GPs and hospitals will know any hereditary diseases or specific treatment requirements for a patient, while law enforcement can request warrants to access entire genomes and use them for DNA analysis. These different levels of access maintain the individual's right to privacy and preserve the utility of the genetic database.
You know, that's actually a pretty decent point. I'm going to have to stop you all right there. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We'll all just have to keep our eyes on the news and see if a registry for babies and their genetic information becomes our reality. Until next time, it has been Questions or Quacks. I'm your host,